Do video games make your teenager violent? Well, the answer is a little bit more complex than you think. You see, there's always been the argument that violent video games make people want to hurt people more. And this has been a conflict for a very long time. For example, when we talk about Dungeons & Dragons that came out in the late 70s, early 80s, that actually was highlighted as, hey, this is a violent board game. Or if you want to talk about Doom and the shooter that it is, and how that contributed to the Columbine shooting, which critics would say it would. But as a child psychiatrist, I often have to look at all the risk factors that lead to violence, particularly in youth. And there have actually been multiple studies on this. So what I want people to take away from this video is that there's actually a thing called relative risk. Relative risk is basically the idea that, hey, how likely are you going to commit an action based on this risk? And there are an incredible amount of relative risks that lead to increased violence. And increased violence in teens are contributed by risk factors such as domestic violence or witnessing domestic violence, substance use or witnessing individuals like parents who have substance use issues, multiple transitions, etc., etc., etc. While video games does make that risk a relative risk, it is a very low relative risk compared to those other factors. So it all comes down to what are the big factors that are contributing to a child's violence and anger. And it can't just be video games, and video games is often not the big risk factor that I'm worried about as a child psychiatrist. If you'd like to learn more, follow us at Taking Controls and take control of your health.